Howdy, y'all. I wanted to take today to talk about preseason top 25, Heisman favorites, and give some week zero previews and predictions. Let's just jump right into it. Honorable mentions: Texas A&M, Missouri, Pitt, and Baylor. Each of these four teams bring back a lot of starters. Missouri brings back 13, Baylor brings back 13, Pitt brings back 14, A&M brings back 15. So, why did these teams almost make the cut? Well, they all have a lot of returning starters. Each team has at least 13 returning starters, some of the most in the FBS, but they just missed it for a few key reasons. Okay, with that, let's go check out my top 25. So, for my top 25, I'm going to start with the lowest rated team and explain my way up. Starting with Kansas State. Kansas State has 11 returning starters. I'm a big fan of Coach Kleiman, and I'm a big believer in Avery Johnson at quarterback. At 24th, Georgia Tech, 9 returning starters, but they have something that I might value even more than overall returning team production is overall returning quarterback production. Haynes King, one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the country, and I'm a big believer in Brent Key as a head coach. 23, I've got Nebraska. Only 9 returning starters, but last year's team was a little disappointing, so that's not too much of an issue. I'm a big believer in Matt Rule. I'm a big believer in Dylan Raiola. I think this team is going to surprise a lot of people this year. 22, I've got Auburn. I know there are some questions about quarterback, especially with Jackson Arnold, but I think this roster is super talented. I don't think Jackson Arnold needs to do a whole lot, and I think that's how Hugh Freeze is going to game plan. I think the defense and running game should be good enough to carry Auburn to some victories. 21, I've got Tennessee. I would have Tennessee probably top 15, but obviously Nico Iamaleava transferred. I think Jeremy Pruitt's a really good head coach. I trust him with quarterbacks, but it's still kind of an unknown. I'm not sure if they've announced a starter yet. But when you look at how they won games last year, they won games because of their running attack and their defense. Well, that defense returns 7 starters from last year. So, again, I don't think you need a great passing attack to win games if you're Tennessee. 20, Oklahoma. I think the offense is going to get it turned around. They brought over John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle from Washington State. But something else, they bring back 12 starters. So this is an experienced team who I think added the necessary upgrades. Oklahoma had a great defense last year. I think that gets missed with how bad they were. Go back and watch the Alabama game. 19th, I've got Texas Tech. Texas Tech looks like they've got all the pieces together to win the Big 12. They bring back 12 starters, some of the most in the country, and they also brought in the second best transfer portal class. But I don't have them higher because I don't really know yet. 18, Ole Miss. A lot of hype out there around Austin Simmons. I think Lane Kiffin is one of the best head coaches in college football. They obviously hit the transfer portal hard, but only 5 returning starters. And I think we all saw with Florida State last year what happens with the transfer portal. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. We'll see how it turns out for Ole Miss this year. 17, Florida, and this is mostly because of DJ Lagway. They also bring back 13 starters. They have a ton of talent, but DJ Lagway is the most attractive piece on this team. If this dude stays healthy, he'll be a Heisman contender. 16, Notre Dame. 11 returning starters. Marcus Freeman, one of the best coaches in college football. And you'll see later, I'm a big fan of Jeremiah Love. I think he's the best halfback in college football this year. Their new quarterback, CJ Carr, not as experienced as Riley Leonard last year. I don't think he's as good of an athlete either. I doubt he has the leadership that Riley Leonard has. Again, I really love this Notre Dame team. I'm just in wait and see mode with CJ Carr. 15, South Carolina. They should have one of the best pass rushes in the country. And I also think Lenore Sellers might be the best quarterback in the country. I don't have them higher because I'm not sure how the rest of their team fits together, but I think they'll be incredibly dangerous this year. 14, Michigan. Believe it or not, Michigan brings back 13 starters from last year, 8 on offense, 5 on defense, plus they bring in Bryce Underwood. I expect that the offense will take a substantial step forward this year. And I also expect the defense should still be pretty good this year. But again, kind of like Notre Dame, I'm in wait and see mode with their quarterback room. I just think the roster is slightly more talented than the Irish is. 13, this is controversial. Alabama. Alabama brings back 14 starters. They've got maybe the most talented team in the country. Kalen DeBoer, a fantastic coach. So why do I have them so low? Again, similar to previous teams mentioned, I just don't know about their quarterback room. Ty Simpson may be great. They may be able to run the ball this year. But we don't really know yet. Also, I've got questions about their defense, which sounds weird talking about Alabama, but their defense was at times pretty bad last year. I think Alabama will be better this year, but it all hinges on quarterback play and offensive line improvement. 12, Miami, 8 returning starters, 3 of them on the O line. They've got a new defensive coordinator. Well, what's really selling Miami for me is Carson Beck. Carson Beck caught a lot of flack last year, and rightfully so, for where he was considered to be in the preseason. I think he'll have a bounce back year this year, and I think Miami is going to be pretty dangerous. 11, Illinois. 16 returning starters, which is tied for second most in the country with Clemson. Brett Bielema has built really quietly a really solid program, and I think that was really emphasized last year when they beat South Carolina in their bowl game. This Illinois team kind of reminds me of older Iowa squads. They're not going to blow you away on offense, but they'll run the ball well, play solid defense. Running the ball and playing defense seem to lead to wins in today's game. 10th, SMU, probably the most controversial one I have on this list. And I've got them so high because I think Kevin Jennings is a legit Heisman contender. I'm a fan of what Rhett Lashley is building up in Dallas. I think Kevin Jennings will take a big step to compensate for the fact that the Mustangs only have 8 returning starters. 9th, LSU. LSU has 2 things I really like. Garrett Nussmeier, a quarterback with a lot of experience, and the number 1 transfer portal class from last year. Only 7 returning starters and questionable coaching are holding me back from having them higher. 8, Arizona State. Yes, that is in spite of the fact they lost Cam Scadaboo. But they actually lead the Power 4 with the most returning starters at 17. This team that won the Big 12 last year is bringing back most of its guys. I know Cam Scadaboo was a big part of that, but I expect everyone else will be able to step up and improve and be able to fill his shoes. 7th, Iowa State. I think Iowa State is the team to beat in the Big 12 this year. Not by much. They bring back 14 starters. And the reason I've got them above Arizona State is because I think Iowa State returns its most important offensive player. That's Rocco Becht. Meanwhile, Arizona State lost theirs in Cam Scadaboo. 6th, I've got Oregon. Now, Oregon only returns 5 starters from last year's team. Dan Lanning has reached a position as a coach where you could trust him to build a team without having to do a complete rebuild. I think Oregon has retooled very well, but I think the experience is going to keep them away from being a title contender this year. 5th, I've got Oregon. Only 7 returning starters, but similar to Dan Lanning and probably to a more so degree, they have earned the right to be trusted, even though they don't return very much production. Maybe the most talented team in the country. I think Georgia is going to have a really good year this year. Fourth, Ohio State. Ohio State has 9 returning starters, slightly more than Georgia and Oregon. Obviously, you have to replace the quarterback play of Will Howard, have to replace that dominant D line they had last year. But of those 9 starters, 6 return on offense. Julian Sain was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. This offense, I expect it to be potent this year. Third, I've got Texas. Texas, similar to Ohio State, 9 returning starters. Obviously, they played in a very close playoff game last year. Almost a reverse of Ohio State. 6 of their starters return on defense as opposed to offense. I think Texas is slightly more talented, and I trust Arch Manning slightly more than I do Julian Sayin, which is why I'm going with Texas over the Buckeyes. Second is Clemson. As previously stated, they're tied for second in the country with 16 returning starters. Dabo Swinney hit the transfer portal this year. I believe he only picked up 4 guys, but those guys I think are important to upgrade this roster. I'm a big believer in Cade Klubnik. I'm a big believer in Dabo Swinney. I think Clemson's got a title contender this year. Number 1, obviously, Penn State. I think they've got the makings of a national champion. They have 14 returning starters on offense. That includes their quarterback. That includes their running back, Nick Singleton. That includes 5 offensive linemen. This team reminds me of Michigan from a couple years ago. Michigan historically struggled to have an explosive offense. And they finally got that one receiver in Roman Wilson. They got their quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. I think Penn State is that team this year. They've got their quarterback, Drew Aller. He's experienced now. They hit the portal, picked up a few receivers. Their defense, I expect it to be solid. I think Penn State is the team to beat in college football this year. Now I want to talk about my Heisman contenders. Fifth, I've got Carson Beck. Kind of a dark horse. Underrated pick, I think. Last year, obviously, he was the preseason Heisman favorite, the preseason favorite to go number 1 overall. Decides to transfer to Miami. And I think he's going to have a bounce back year. Fourth, Jeremiah Smith. If this guy hits 1,000 yards, the Ohio State hype machine might get him into New York just because of that. I think he'll have well over 1,000 yards. He might be the best receiver prospect since Calvin Johnson. Third, Jeremiah Love. This depends on if he can stay healthy. Health was a bit of an issue last year for him. If you have any doubts about this kid, go back and watch the college football playoff. Second, Cade Klubnik. Super experienced quarterback. He's a good athlete, great arm. I like the system he's in at Clemson, and I think he's got a really talented receiver core around him. Number 1, Lenore Sellers. I know he's been drawing comparisons to Cam Newton, and that's honestly who he reminds me of. All the physical tools needed from a quarterback, and I also think South Carolina's not good enough to just run away from most of the teams they'll play. So he'll have lots of opportunities to have some big games this year. Now I'm going to do a quick week 0 preview. Obviously, the big game of the weekend, FARMAGEDON. AP 22nd team, Iowa State playing AP 17th team, Kansas State. Based on my top 25 polls, I think y'all know which way I'm leaning. I think Iowa State is going to be able to edge out Kansas State. I think Iowa State takes this one. I think their defense is experienced enough to slow down Avery Johnson. And I really like Rocco Becht to make enough plays to get the Cyclones the win. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Stick around for more football content like this.